Mitchell has his head up, takes the feet. Oh, my! Donovan!
Get that weak stuff out of here!
Their apologies to Jarrett Allen. But while we're talking about three-point shooting, I think this is the most natural way to transition to Emoni Bates. Set a new career high for the G League with 38 points. He's shooting 22 of 44 from deep over his last 4 games, which is pretty ridiculous. He's a microwave scorer. Charge head coach Mike Garrity just flat out said, I just laugh at some of the shots he makes sometimes. He had a stretch of 3 straight threes, which when we were watching in the game, I did not realize how deep he was shooting those 3-pointers from because we were on the other side of the court. When you posted those videos of him shooting, I was blown away. I was like, I can't believe he was pulling up from that deep behind the 3-point line. He is just a flamethrower from deep. But the thing that really stood out to me when we talked to him at the end of the game is just the perspective that he has, not only of basketball, but of himself. He is such a self-aware player. The first thing that he said when we asked him about, what aspect of your development are you most proud of, right off the heels of a career-high 38-point scoring night, he talked about his defense. He talked about buying into the defensive end, no longer just being a spectator, but trying to be an active member of the defense. And the head coach said the same thing. He said this was probably the best defensive performance he has had all season. Doesn't mean he's a lockdown defender by any means, but Monty talks a lot about improving 1% better every day. And this is the way to do it. Having that mentality, going out there and taking these steps every day. What is your take on Emoni Bates and his time in the G League so far?
So one thing he really benefits from is that the Charge have a massive center court logo. So it always looks like he's
the logo
shots.
These were a little generous, but they're still deeper than I expected when I was watching.
So yeah, they were super deep, but you're but when you're there, you're like, why is the logo 2 feet from the 3-point line? So that's one thing. But yeah, I really like his it's hard not to like his 3-point shooting because there are really tough shots that he's making and he makes them look effortless. One of the things that I feel like I keep saying, and I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but the ball just sounds different when he makes them because there's just so much spin on the ball, and it's the same with his misses. They just ricochet everywhere. It's wild. It's like a golfer who puts a lot of spin on a wedge shot, which I know Tony, huge golfer, so he gets that. But so it's just it's really impressive, his shooting, and I think what he needs to keep improving on is how to get those shots, because one of the things that we saw in summer league is he wasn't really moving off ball. He was more he was doing the Dylan Windler, where Dylan Windler would just kind of keep drifting further behind the 3-point line to get shots because, teams usually stay by the 3-point line when they're guarding people. And now teams yesterday, after he makes a couple threes, they're picking him up at half court. So how can he get looks off then? He needs to keep getting more comfortable running off screens, something he's talked about, he's getting better at, but I think there's a lot more room to improve, especially relocating. One of the things that I love about Sam is every time he passes the ball, he's gone before the ball reaches its target. He's already trying to go to his next spot. And Emoni's doing that, but he's doing it at a slower pace. He needs to be
you can see him thinking through it.
Right, I passed it. Now I need to move. He needs to be the same time so he can, because the pass, your defender kind of freezes a little bit during that pass, so you have that extra millisecond to kind of create some separation. And he has a quick enough shot where if he creates any separation, he can get it up and it's a clean look. He's also 6'9". He's huge, so that's really good. And that's one of the things that I really want to see him improve on. Because he really needs to rely on those 3-point shots because his handle is still leaves a lot to be desired, I think. I don't
his
think
finishing could use some work.
Right. And one of the things is that one of the things that I say a lot is that you can't really count the stuff in the restricted area, or at least you have to look at it with skepticism. just because the big man play in the G League is that's the biggest drop off between the NBA and the G League is there are no good centers in the G League. Like you think about like Robin Lopez has been on an NBA roster for like 5 years and he's been awful. And but he's considerably better than like any G League center that you're going to get. So it's like if you're not finishing in the G League consistently, you're not going to just go to the NBA and do that. And which it's fine. He's 19. He needs to grow physically and stuff. But like if you're saying, hey, like we want to give you minutes tomorrow, he needs to generate more 3-point shots and use his gravity in a better way. And he's improving, but that's where he needs to like. That's what I would look at if I am watching the games. But if you, the viewer / listener, are watching, that's something that I would keep an eye on. Is like off ball movement and stuff like that, because it has improved considerably. But there's also there's still room. But the defense. One of the things that I will say is that long term, I'm not like super concerned about his defense, just because when you have somebody who's 6'9", I know he doesn't have like a huge wingspan. It's a lot easier. Like your margin for error is so much more than like a Sam Merrill 6'4", not super athletic guy. Like Emoni's not super athletic, but he's 6'9", so like you can find places to put him. I think especially if he becomes a better rebounder, this is a lot easier. That's why Garrett has talked about his rebounding, because it's like if he can rebound like a 4, then in many years he could maybe even play a 4. So it's like that's where you want to see growth. I think he falls asleep still on the defensive end, especially off ball. And when his shot's not going in, he falls asleep way more than when his shot is going in. When he gets locked in, he's fine, but like when he's like not getting his 3-point shots off, he can fall asleep. So, and really that's not the end of the world. Everyone falls asleep. Not everyone, but it's not the end of the world. But
it's easier to be engaged on both ends when your shot's falling.
Right, like when you have 38 points, I'd be locked in defensively if I had 38 points. So like that's it's a lot easier to do, and those are some of the areas that like you really want to see him improve, because the shot is there, and it's crazy. Where like one of the things that like he has that like someone like Merrill doesn't have is that like he's such a good pull up 3-point shooter. So as soon as he takes the ball like over the over like half court, it's like the defense was just like on him. Like they were like freaking out. Like we can't, like they're like face guarding him. So it's like he has such an elite offensive skill. And the things that you look for most is shooting and size. He has both. So you can work with that. It's just, he needs to keep working at how to maximize both.
Yeah. That's the point of emphasis with him in terms of his offensive development, is learning how to move off ball. Unbelievable talent as a shooter, stationary pull-up shooting. The one skill that he's always had to work on, he's getting better, as we said, is moving off a ball, coming to the ball when he's coming off of screens, having his defender actually chase him. A lot of times he'll come off the screen and kind of just wait for it. It's good to actually, follow through on that. I know he doesn't follow through on his actual shot, and it doesn't matter, but when you're coming off of a screen, going through the full motion will help a lot in terms of separating yourself from your defender. Something that we saw in this game towards the end of the game, when defenders started to face guard him, again, we mentioned this, a little too slow to go back door on them. He did go back door, and he got a couple passes there, but he wasn't able to take a shot because the defense had already rotated over. If this is a situation where he dumps the ball to the big man and then goes back door right away, rather than it looked like he wanted another 3-point shot and then just kind of took what the defense was giving him. If he starts to use his gravity a little more and recognize, like, okay, they're face guarding me, I'm going to, shade up and then go back door, that could generate a lot of easy looks for him. And you mentioned, hey, if he keeps playing like Dylan Windler, then he's going to set a G League record for rebounds, which is what we want from him. So right, wouldn't be too mad at that.
One of the things that I think is always important to talk about with any of these guys, like any of prospects, I guess, or anybody who's like under 20, is that like in the NBA, 98% of guys are going to be forced to play roles that didn't quite get them to the NBA. So like Dylan Windler, which is great that you brought him up. Like one of the things that Windler really struggled to do is transition from being, I'm at Belmont, I'm the man, I take shots off the dribble, I attack off the dribble, I'm just like the guy. And when he gets to the NBA, like that's not what his role is. So he needs to become a off-ball player, and for a variety of reasons that never really transferred over. So it's like Emoni, he's never been an off-ball player, especially when you look at like his Central Michigan. He was so on ball and so like really, the focal point of everything. And he struggled doing that. So he's going to have to keep learning how to play this role. And it's not something that you're going to learn overnight because, nobody learned that overnight. Like even like Sam Merrill, for example, he was an on-ball player in college. He didn't just come to the NBA and just be a movement shooter. He's continued to progress in that area, and he's 27.
I was going to say he's 27. It took him this long to finally everything came together for him.
Right.
So
it's
patience
like,
is the key.
Yeah, Emoni's 19, and he's playing a completely different game. So that's where it's like, yeah, he's scoring 38 points, but like we can say like, well, he could give minutes, but it's like it's probably not in his best interest to do that because he just needs to learn how his game is best going to translate to the NBA. And if he becomes like a super valuable off-ball player, let's say for example he develops a skill set that allows him to finish at the rim, like that off-ball playing is gonna like it's gonna be beneficial and like helpful. Like when you talk about Steph Curry, it's his like it all starts with how he moves off ball. Like everything he does on ball is made possible because of how he moves off ball. So this is all beneficial, and this is something that Emoni needs to go through, and he's not really going to be featured in a way in the NBA that's going to allow him to do that. So like this is very important. So let's just like keep an eye on him while he's in the G League, but also like he's not like should be getting minutes over George Niang or something like that.
That took a lot for you to say, I could tell.
Well,
the slightest compliment to my boy Niang, I'll take it. I do agree 100% with everything you said. To wrap this all back up with how I started, I think the good thing is he has the right perspective. He knows what he needs to improve. Of course, doing it and saying it are two different things, but he clearly has the right perspective of where he needs to be as a player. He is taking that challenge to be better every day. And again, keep an eye on it.
I think it's really good. Like I can't imagine the Emoni Bates experience going much better than it has, just because he's completely bought in. He's bought into a G League role. He's bought into like, I need to, like what got me on the cover of Sports Illustrated is not what's going to get me on an NBA floor. And he's bought in completely. He said, hey, like I'm going to get G League, like I'm going to make the most of my G League time. I'm going to keep working on it. I understand that like he's not saying this, but like his actions are showing this. Like in the beginning of the year, talked to him after one of the beginning G League games, and he was kind of like, oh yeah, like this is really good, but like, I hope that I can kind of do this in the NBA or like get minutes soon. And you're just like, that's not really realistic right now with this Cavs team, and not in his best interest. So it's like, I think he's buying into that more.
Yeah, it would be so easy for anyone in his position right now to see all the openings on this Cavs team with the injuries they have and to kind of be upset or bitter or whatever. He hasn't shown any of that at all. He absolutely, it seems like he's fully rallied behind even Craig Porter Jr., someone who we probably expected to spend a lot of time in the G League with. He could easily feel resentment for that or anything, but he hasn't. He's taken all the correct steps, just the correct approach to his development up to this point. So I'm excited to see how he continues to develop. It's going to be a long-term project, but one step at a time, 1% better every day, as he says.